While flying high over a quiet valley, a drone managed to capture something chilling. But what the footage revealed next shocks everyone who sees it. Did you see that? Rewind it. Something's not right. The sharp hum of rotors cut through the misty morning air as Lior Patel squinted into his drone controller screen. From his perch atop a low hill in Israel's Peace Valley, the world below looked serene, untouched, a sprawling sea of green, dotted with the slow, rhythmic movements of a massive herd of sheep. All right, let's get a clean sweep today, Lior muttered to himself, adjusting the controls. At just 34 years old, Lior had built a quiet reputation around Haifa as one of the most dedicated drone photographers in the region. His Instagram was a growing showcase of sunsets, ocean waves, cityscapes. And recently, sheep. For the past 7 months, he had committed to a long-term project, documenting a local shepherd's large herd as they migrated across Peace Valley, from winter pastures to their summer grazing lands. The flock was enormous, sometimes as many as 1,700 sheep at once. Today was just another recording day, or so he thought. Lior hovered the drone about 250 feet above the field. From that height, the herd's white coats looked like scattered grains of rice blowing across a green rug. He tilted the camera, capturing the movement in slow, sweeping shots. Everything seemed normal, until it didn't. Frowning, Lior leaned closer to the screen. In the middle of the field, the sheep were moving oddly, faster, tighter, forming a spiral that started growing, pulsing outward. It wasn't random wandering. It almost looked intentional. "What the?" he whispered, heart picking up speed. Quickly, he hit the recording button and panned the camera higher. Now it was unmistakable. The sheep weren't just gathering. They were swirling in perfect organized loops, forming a tight, mesmerizing pattern that could be seen clearly only from above. He tilted the controller stick slightly to the left, circling the drone around. The pattern widened, stretching across nearly half the valley basin. It looked natural at first, but there was something unsettling about the precision. Animals didn't move like that, did they? After about 3 minutes, the sheep began to slow down and disperse, scattering again into loose, grazing clumps as if nothing had happened. Lior stared at the screen, blinking. Maybe it was a trick of perspective. Maybe his mind was reading too much into natural behavior. Still, something gnawed at him. He quickly saved the footage to his drive, packed up his gear, and headed home, drone tucked carefully under his arm. Later that afternoon, with coffee in one hand and a USB cable in the other, Lior slumped into his small home office, a cluttered space filled with drone parts, camera lenses, and hard drives stacked like miniature skyscrapers. He transferred the footage onto his laptop and pressed play. At first, he chuckled to himself. "It's just sheep," he muttered, watching the early footage. But as the minutes ticked by, that odd spiral pattern unfolded again. Slowed down frame by frame, it became even clearer. The sheep moved almost like iron filings under a magnet, swirling into shapes far too organized to be random. Lior leaned closer to the screen, heart thudding. At certain points, the flock tightened into a near-perfect circle. In another clip, they spiraled outward like the shape of an ancient seashell. He even spotted a moment where their movement briefly resembled a human eye. "This isn't normal grazing," he murmured. Trying to stay rational, he Googled sheep behavior for hours, diving into articles, studies, and farming blogs. He found out that under certain stressors, predators, weather shifts, dominant members pushing the herd, sheep can form compressed patterns. But nothing he found explained the kind of large-scale geometric movement he had captured. Still second-guessing himself, Lior decided to first post a safe snippet on Instagram. A time-lapse, showing the sheep's swirling dance, sped up to look hypnotic but framed as natural behavior. He captioned it, "Sheep in fast motion." For the past 7 months, I have been following a large herd of sheep from winter pasture to the movement and arrival at the summer pasture. The size of the herd ranges from 1,000 to 1,700 sheep. He hit post and left it at that. The reaction was almost immediate. Different comments poured in. The post went viral overnight, shared across TikTok, Twitter, and even news blogs in Israel and Europe. Everyone was fascinated by the beauty and mystery of the movement. And everyone assumed it was just artistic nature captured beautifully. But Lior knew the truth. The clip he posted was just a fraction of what he really saw. The unedited footage, the raw 7 months worth, showed something way deeper, something that couldn't be explained by beautiful chaos alone. And the temptation to show the world everything grew stronger by the hour. Was it a glitch of nature? An unknown instinct buried deep within the flock? Or something tied to the very ground itself? Lior didn't have the answers, but one thing was certain. He was going to find out. 2 days after his viral Instagram post, Lior Patel sat hunched over his laptop, surrounded by empty coffee cups and notebooks filled with frantic scribbles. He had made a decision. He would go through every single frame of footage he'd gathered over the past 7 months, all hundreds of gigabytes of it. Piece by piece, he stitched the best segments into a master video. It was a tedious process. Sheep grazing, sheep running, sheep sleeping under cloudy skies. But whenever he thought about giving up, he remembered that swirling spiral and pushed on. As he dug deeper, something strange began to emerge. In several recordings, the drone captured the sheep forming other shapes besides spirals. At one point in late winter, they clustered into a rough triangle, holding formation for nearly 10 minutes before dissolving again. In early spring, during a particularly windy day, the herd flowed together into a wide elliptical shape, almost resembling a primitive fish symbol. None of it seemed intentional. No shepherds were nearby. No sheepdogs barking orders. The formation simply happened. At one point, Lior nearly dropped his coffee cup. In the April footage, the sheep swirled into a long curved line that looked suspiciously like the ancient Eye of Horus symbol he'd once seen in an archaeology article. Coincidence? His rational side said yes. His gut disagreed. But what pushed him over the edge was what happened in May. Reviewing the footage frame by frame, Lior noticed something alarming. A sudden loss of signal when the drone was flying over a specific part of the valley. It happened fast, a sharp cutout, almost like someone had jammed the signal or the land itself refused to be recorded. The footage glitched, scrambled for a second, and then resumed. Chills ran down his spine. Determined not to overreact, Lior decided to visit the valley again, this time on foot. Later that evening, armed with only a flashlight, his camera, and a gnawing sense of unease, he hiked back into Peace Valley. He wandered to the spot where the drone had glitched. The grass was slightly lower there. Strange depressions marred the earth, almost like the outline of something buried below. He crouched down, brushed his fingers over the dirt, and found a small shard of ancient-looking pottery half buried near a rock. Heart pounding, Lior slipped it into his backpack. This wasn't just a viral video project anymore. It was turning into something bigger, something history had buried, and nature was accidentally revealing. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat awake, piecing together footage, snapshots, and old regional maps from dusty online archives. There was no mention of ancient structures in Peace Valley. But the land was old. Israel's hills were soaked in history. Wars, temples, migrations. Whole civilizations layered like forgotten songs under the soil. What if the sheep weren't just wandering? What if somehow they were following ancient paths, trails etched into the earth's memory? The idea sounded insane. Yet every frame of footage pointed closer to something buried beneath. And so, he made his decision. He would post the full footage. All of it, unedited. Let the world see what he had seen, and let them draw their own conclusions. Midnight arrived. Lior uploaded the full video under a bold title. Raw video, drone captured something that no one should have seen. He set it live and closed his laptop, nerves fraying. Part of him wanted to delete it before anyone could view it. Another part of him knew it was too late. By morning, chaos had erupted online. The video had crossed 1 million views before Lior even finished breakfast. Within 12 hours, it was picked up by major news outlets. Mysterious sheep movement captured in drone footage. Shocks viewers. Reddit forums exploded with theories. Scientists weighed in on national television. Some tried to explain it away. Dr. Avi Ronen, a biologist from Tel Aviv University, suggested it could be mass group psychology at work. Others blamed changes in magnetic fields, shifts in the Earth's subtle forces nudging the animals subconsciously. Lior watched all of this unfold with a hollow feeling. He had hoped for curiosity, not hysteria. Still, buried beneath the noise, serious voices began to emerge. A group of archaeologists from the University of Haifa contacted him directly, requesting access to more raw drone footage. Curious, Lior agreed. 2 days later, they sent him a preliminary report that made his heart stop. According to ancient maps cross-referenced with drone coordinates, the spirals and shapes the sheep formed aligned shockingly close to the layout of an ancient settlement believed to have existed over 3,000 years ago, a site that had long since been buried and lost to history. The pottery shard Lior had picked up was estimated to be from the early Bronze Age. The land itself had been whispering its story, and somehow, through instinct or echoing memories, the sheep had mapped it out, moving in ancient trails long forgotten by human memory. By week's end, Peace Valley was crawling with researchers, journalists, and even a few spiritual groups praying near the fields. But for Lior, standing at the edge of it all, it wasn't about fame or theories. It was about witnessing the Earth remembering itself. Within 2 weeks, excavation teams confirmed what researchers had only theorized. Peace Valley sat atop a 3,000-year-old settlement, a village that predated even early known records of that region. Ancient pottery, fragmented stone walls, remnants of primitive agricultural systems, all hidden for centuries beneath the soil, and it had taken a herd of sheep to expose the clues. Footage analysis revealed something even crazier. When the drone shots were overlaid with digital models of ancient Middle Eastern village layouts, the spirals and curves the sheep formed mirrored the patterns ancient farmers used to herd livestock around village hubs and religious gathering spots. It wasn't random. It was as if the sheep had instinctively retraced the pathways their ancestors once trod thousands of years ago without ever knowing it. Theories flooded in from across disciplines. Some biologists proposed that grazing paths could be genetically inherited behavior, passed down across generations of herd animals. Archaeologists suggested that subtle topographical differences, like softer ground or buried walls just inches under the surface, could have subtly influenced the flock's movements without human eyes noticing. Either way, the scientific community was blown away. A headline from National Geographic summed it up perfectly. Drone footage captures Earth's hidden memory. How animals map forgotten histories. But the general public didn't care much about scientific theories. For them, it was simply magic, proof that the Earth itself could whisper through nature when given the chance. Memes, tribute videos, and even short documentaries popped up everywhere. A massive art installation was announced in downtown Tel Aviv, a giant spiral sculpture built in honor of the sheep of Peace Valley, using the exact pattern from Lior's drone footage. Lior himself was overwhelmed. His quiet project to document seasonal grazing had become a global symbol of something bigger than he could ever have imagined. And it wasn't just strangers reaching out. Old friends he hadn't spoken to in years messaged him. Strangers sent emails from all over the world thanking him for reminding humanity that not everything beautiful can be explained. In one particularly emotional message, a woman from Italy wrote, "In a world full of noise, your footage made me believe that maybe nature still has stories to tell if we only care to listen." Lior read it twice, misty-eyed. It wasn't fame he had chased. It was connection. Connection between Earth, animal, and human, threaded together by something as simple as a drone floating over a misty valley. Weeks later, the frenzy around the footage had begun to settle down, but the impact remained. The excavation site in Peace Valley was now protected by local authorities, and as a result, a slow, careful archaeological dig had begun. They uncovered portions of what appeared to be an old marketplace, remnants of kilns used for pottery, and faint traces of ancient sheep pens, almost eerily close to where the modern-day flock had formed their spirals. It was clear now. The sheep had danced through the memories of their ancestors, tracing the ghost roads and invisible trails still etched deep into the ground's DNA. And Lior? He found himself back on the same hill where it had all started. Controller in hand, drone buzzing quietly above. This time, he wasn't there for viral footage. He was there to witness. He adjusted the lens, capturing wide, sweeping shots of the valley as the sun dipped low, bathing everything in gold. Down below, the sheep grazed peacefully, unaware of the history they had unearthed, unaware of the stir they had caused across the world. A soft chuckle escaped Lior's lips. Life was funny like that. Sometimes the most extraordinary discoveries weren't made through force or ambition, but by simply watching and listening carefully enough. Beside him, Shepherd Yaakov shuffled up, his hands tucked into the pockets of his worn jacket. "You know," Yaakov said, grinning at the view, "I always told you, the flock knows more than we think." Lior smiled. "Yeah, you did." They stood there, in comfortable silence, the breeze carrying the distant sounds of bells tied to the sheep's necks. Then, almost casually, Yaakov said, "They say the land remembers." Lior glanced at him. "Maybe," he said, lifting the drone higher. "The land doesn't just remember. Maybe it teaches too." As the drone climbed toward the clouds, capturing the vastness of Peace Valley and its timeless story, Lior felt an overwhelming sense of peace. He hadn't just captured footage. He had captured a living memory, a silent testimony that even after civilizations fall, after maps fade, after names are forgotten, the Earth remembers. It carries stories not in books, but in grass and soil, in the wind and the flock, in the quiet dance of life moving as it always has. And sometimes, if you look closely enough, with the right lens, at the right moment, The Earth tells you everything you were never supposed to forget. Have you ever wondered what secrets the skies could uncover when no one's watching? Would you have reacted differently if you were the one behind the controls? Thanks for watching, and don't forget to join us again for more jaw-dropping discoveries.